I didn't stop anyone from trading anything because trades are awesome, trades are fun, and trades
Mike
make
would
the world go round.
Mike would never stop a trade.
It just doesn't make sense. It's not in my nature, and I think it's more fun that way. So, welcome everybody to the NFL GMs podcast. You got Vikings, Eagles, and Bengals here, taking you through some of the recent activity in the league. Um, RJ, kick us off. How we doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Uh, I'm I'm watching you make a whole bunch of trades, and I'm excited to talk about them.
Good, bad, or otherwise, it's content, right, Chris?
Content is great. You create the content we need, and then you talk about the content. So it feels like Monopoly.
Well, hopefully I'm dealing in Park Place and Boardwalk here, but there's every opportunity for me to pick up a Baltic or a Connecticut every once in a while. But thus is life, and thus is trading. But anyways, big action since the last time we talked has been a multitude of trades. Again, I think the majority of them, if not the plurality of them, are involving Goose. What we'll do is kind of go through that. Chris will take care of a little bit of commissioner business and then get some opinions there and come up with maybe a couple ideas of trades we'd like to see. Folks who have been chopping stuff that we think should get moved or kind of some directions we'd like to see a couple teams take. So I know we jumped into some of the new teams last week. Maybe we'll pick another 3 or 4 teams, kind of jump into the rosters and see what we have to see there. But anyways, before we get too far into it, Chris, any commission stuff you'd like to take care of?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to point out as a commissioner is being aware of the league rollover deadline, which is fast approaching here. That's February 14th. So especially if you're a new owner and you haven't been in here before, February 14th, we take the league offline as we convert it over to the next year's league. At that time, all your contracts decrease by 1 year. Any extensions you haven't used are wiped out. So make sure you get your extensions in. If you haven't used renegotiation, use that cut down a salary you have on a player. And then finally, make sure you have a place for the salary for any 5th-year options you've declared. So it's a big time in the league. We try to let everyone know that it's coming up. We're not going to babysit you, though, so we're not going to do it for you. If you don't meet whatever requirements, if you don't meet the roster recommendations, if you don't take people off your taxi squad in IR, they will be dropped or cut. So make sure you get your team in order before league rollover is the commissioner notes for this call.
You heard him. I mean, it's all too straightforward. And as we say every time, if you have questions, ask one of the commissioners, ask me or RJ. We'll give you, as long as we're not involved in a biased opinion, because, again, I'm just going to call out my own shortcomings. If it involves me, I'm not going to be unbiased. But if it doesn't involve me, then I can do my best to give advice. And again, I think it's for the health of the league that everyone, keeps things up to date. If a stud gets dropped because you don't update your IR, that doesn't help anybody because then RJ just picks him up by spending $70 million on them because he has that kind of cap space next year. And nobody wants that. So look, take care of your business. If you have questions, ask him. If something's confusing or you think you want to, just get another voice in your ear about it, you've got a good group of owners here to call on. So don't be afraid of asking questions because in a lot of cases, it'll help. I think there's, especially one of the renegotiation moves that happened this last week. I think at first glance, I kind of looked at it and I said, did somebody make a mistake here? Then I understand what he was trying to do, and it made some sense. But again, make sure you kind of get some opinions on that and do what's best for your team. Cool. So as mentioned, 25 trades since the last time we got together here. I think I may be incorrect. I think actually I might be the plurality rather than the Chiefs, but it's pretty damn close.
I think there's more than 25 trades.
Yeah, so the last trade we talked about on the pod was the God Chow and one for
okay.
2. The after show did result in a couple of moves. So that's what we'll talk about there. And because it thus is life, thus is tradition, that after the show, we continue doing things and having drinks. And the next thing you know, I've turned over half my team. This is just what happens. Anyways, kind of going through a couple of highlights so that we don't tell you about the great summer vacation trip that we took last year. So after the show last week, I shipped the newly acquired Falcons second, which is 232, and the Raiders 23 first for Zaven Collins, Jamin Davis, Eric Murray, and Washington's third. Again, first and a second involved for linebackers who went in the first round last year. Say what you want. Probably overpaid a little bit, but is what it is. Eagles sending Kellen Mond, the Cousins backup to Titans for Eno Benjamin and Keyshawn Vaughn. Really like that buy for you, RJ. I think Keyshawn's a undervalued asset right now, and especially if Lenny leaves, could find himself in a very good role next year.
Yep. Both running backs are, if I'm not mistaken, under contract, and one of the few running backs on their individual rosters that are under contract. So just buy them now. They might get some hype and a better workload next year.
Mm-hmm. Next is Marcus Epps and a third for Darrell Williams to the Seahawks.
Are you skipping your trade with Titans?
Oh, I guess I can go back and look at that.
We got to talk about that one.
So, because the Minnesota fans in the house will talk about this, trading the fifth-year option Rashad Penny and Justin Jefferson for Javonte Williams and Jerry Jeudy. So, Jeudy has made his way back to my squad with Javonte Williams, who I think most dynasty sites are saying it's a top 5 dynasty running back right now. To make that happen, I had to give up the running back of the future in Seattle, which is Rashad Penny at the low price of $14.1 million next year, and Justin Jefferson, who just gritted his way right onto my team, then right off of my team.
Yeah. Trade looks completely fine, fair. I wanted to comment more on the dynasty view of Javonte, more so than the specific trade, in that him being locked in as a top 5 asset, I understand the view for that. It feels a little premature,
right?
Though. I understand if he's the sole bell cow, he's young, he's on a team that expects offensive upgrades, hopefully in QB, this offseason. However, take for a second, we don't get perfect scenario of a QB upgrade for Broncos, and they bring in another running back to help split the load because it worked so well this year.
Mm-hmm.
Javonte is someone I've faded probably just out of habit based on how much hype he's already had this offseason. So I'm a little bit wondering if I'm alone in that thought, or if you guys are both fully on the Javonte bandwagon here.
I've been on the Javonte bandwagon since before he was drafted. I loved his landing spot, even with Melvin Gordon. I viewed him as like somebody that would be a low thousands, like at best, but be really close to 10 touchdowns every season, just as like a goal line type of back. I still view that, and I think he kind of worked himself into that particular type of workload. He's a fantastic player.
No, and again, pure transparency into my thought process on this. Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, is wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 in Dynasty right now and cost controlled for the next 2 years. I think that's a hell of an asset to have. My issue was Rashad Penny, not because of the 5th-year option, because the Seahawks have not picked up his 5th-year option. He is a free agent. So because of that, there's a lot more uncertainty there. He could go and sign with Denver, for example, and be sharing a backfield with Javonte Williams. And what does either of their workload look at this point? So the price tag, the fact that he's not signed with Seattle, and then the ability to get back Jerry Jeudy, who, again, in addition to Javonte, who I think is probably overvalued as a top 5 running back asset. I think probably top 10, top 15 is probably more at the right range for him. And then Jeudy, who I view as a top 50 receiver in Dynasty right now. Again, I think in that wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 range made sense for what I'm trying to do with my team right now. So that's why I made the deal, because I'm in the process, as you can see, of breaking down assets, diversifying to a couple other positions, a couple other spots, adding some draft capital in the process. So those are the things I wanted to do with the moves I've been making, and that allowed me to do it. And frankly, we talked about the low end of if they don't upgrade the quarterback, if they bring in another running back to split carries with Javonte, which I think probably would be a good thing if it's the right running back. There's also the upside of they bring the right quarterback, they have the right head coach, and they do the right thing here. And he's looking at a Jonathan Taylor-like season. So I think that's the upside of upsides. I'll take the middle of the pack that gets me a running back one season, kind of a RB15 type year. I think with everything else I have in my squad, that's what I need.
Yeah, I like the idea of a young running back that gets 200, 250 touches and not 350 touches every season.
Yeah, I think that's easily fair expectations because Javonte already finished RB16 in total points, splitting workload, and I doubt he does any worse than that. So I think you're fairly safe, even projecting locked in top 12, top 10, no matter what happens to them.
Yeah. I think his overall value might be higher than where he lands as far as like points per game or total points next year. But I think he's on the safer side.
Yes, he's a very safe pick or player to own. Well, what I think you should do is you should trade for Sutton, trade for Fant, trade for whatever quarterback real life Broncos get, and just run that stack just for fun.
Yes.
I might. Who knows? There's still a lot to go in the offseason. I don't know who that quarterback's going to be yet. I mean, it might be Aaron Rodgers. It might be Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, it was almost a 49ers and Broncos trade back in the day, but we'll see what ends up happening. But optionality is what I'm trying to create at this point. But okay, can I talk about Darrell Williams now?
All right, fine.
Thank you. So, Marcus Epps in the third for Darrell Williams. I don't know what to make of the Kansas City running back core right now. I'll be honest. CEH, by draft capital, should be leading it. McKinnon has been getting a ton of touches this offseason. And Darrell Williams, I think, was a 180-point running back this year. So I don't know whether it's going to continue to be a committee because I don't think that's usually the way that that Reed rolls. But that being said, if Williams is going to settle into a 180-point per year role, that's a heck of an asset to get for Epps in the third.
So I think McKinnon's playing a little bit more because everybody's banged up through the postseason run. I don't really know if he stays with the team or would like continue that type of workload into next season. The Williams workload. I mean, if you look at the beginning of the season when CEH was healthy, it wasn't fantastic, but it was still, decent, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like what I would expect. But like he's pretty decent. He's had like good games. I can see some of those games happening even when like Hilaire's out there. I think it's a fantastic price. Like nobody's gonna enjoy his franchise tag price, but he's decent to hold on to for another year.
Yeah, I didn't realize he's gonna have to get tagged to be hung on to. Even in RFA, that's not gonna be a cheap price.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, moving up. The Goose breaking down that 232 he got from me for Ravens third, which I think is 230 or 330. And then Raiders third. So 232 for 330 and then a future third. That's, again, normal Goose trade. Just by volume, everything evens out. But I would say this one is probably a pretty cheap sell for the 232.
Yep.
I agree with that.
Third round, a gamble in the third round next year. And then you can, do what you want with the third round this year. Whether it be draft a player, flip it for something. Looks fine.
So this next trade, I'm not going to crap on anybody because especially from an IDP perspective, I don't have the depth of knowledge that everyone else does. You'll see the way I build my teams is because I know the players and because I know the roles they're going to have. I think there's a lot better owners in the league in terms of finding those diamonds in the rough. What Matt did, for example, with Hassan Reddick last year. that's not something I'm ever going to be able to figure out because I'm not that good at IDP. That said,
I'll crap on this trade.
Shaq Barrett. Shaq Barrett at 1.2 million, putting up 180 points last year for Milton Williams, who was a 75-point D tackle as a rookie this year. AJ Klein, a 70-point linebacker who's 30 years old, costing 3 times as much as Shaq. Eric Stokes, 135-point rookie corner who has had a pretty good year, but again, is a rookie corner on a 4-year deal. The Chargers second and the Giants third in 23 for Shaq. I think this is a classic example of getting 5 dimes for $1.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is.
What, you guys are going to give more content than that? Come on, you're going to comment on the trade? Yep.
No, you're completely right. I don't know if it's really a good move, a bad move. It's you broke it down into some other things that you're probably not going to be able to sell off and really get true value for. Yes, you get a second and a third round pick, but like, what are those players really worth?
And again, I don't know enough to know if Milton Williams and Eric Stokes as rookies are going to be worth it, or if AJ Klein finds himself in a better role next year.
Well,
again, those plus the picks could mean something, but dude,
no, by that stand,
Stokes is a cornerback, so he's got no value to me in this deal. Like, I can't even get value off of the cornerback Diggs, who had an all-time season. So I'm not including him in
define value.
Yeah, I'll define value later. So
define value as a first-round pick for your corner.
No. I'm not asking for a first on that, but for a Diggs level year, a guy that's a ball hawk, I'd expect early third, late second value on him.
You're not going to get it for Stokes, yeah.
No, I'm not saying for Stokes. I'm saying for Diggs, like,
yeah,
that value
I understand.
not in there. So for a different cornerback who is exactly the same as almost anybody you can pick up from the free agent pool in season, I'm not going to add that as value to the trade. AJ Klein, again, a 30-year-old linebacker who has not had decent stats for a while, either of the last 2 years. So like 2 years ago, he had 5 sacks or something like that. This year, he was worse, I believe. 1 sack when I opened up his page here, just real quickly. That's not much worth either. So I'm seeing this as Milton, second, third for Barrett. To me, the trade's missing a first. It could be a late first, I don't care, but it's missing a first-round pick there for a linebacker that is going to be productive into his later years, because his job is just to rush the QB, and those type of players tend to age a little bit better than your coverage tackle accumulating middle linebackers that you might be using. So yeah, my stance on it, not a good trade, but we've seen stuff like this before where the player falls off a cliff and the picks are better and whatnot. So I don't like to crap on trades a whole lot, but I didn't think this one was fair value at all.
I thought it was fair value, but just not something you typically want to do every day. Just break a player like that down.
So, okay. And I think that's a good kind of round table on that one. Moving on to the next one.
Did you get your content you needed, Mike? Did we have enough
Thank
points?
you. It's much better than, yep. So the next one is I really like this one for Texans. I think he got really good value for these players. He was paying to sell off a lot of contracts. The Corey Davis contract is going to go down in league history as one of the most famous overpays for a player, in most renegotiated player maybe of all time. Looking at this, he's had a extension in 18, renegotiation in 20, and I would bet dollars to donuts that next year he's going to get another renegotiation. So him and Drew Sample, who toyed with a starting tight end role until CJ Uzomah came and really took hold of everything for the 208. So again, this isn't an arbitrary second. It's the 208. So Davis flirted with that, but it looks like that's probably Elijah Moore's show going forward. for the Jets. Davis is probably going to play a role, but probably not better than a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 in the league role. So getting the 208, getting off that contract for that, I think is a great move by Texans. And as mentioned, it looked like he was trying to make ample cap space to extend both Josh Allen and Roquan Smith. Now we have $64 million in cap space. I think he probably has the space to do both at this point. So
he does.
It was a rough road, but being able to do that in the last kind of cherry on top is the 208. I think it's a great move.
I fully agree. I spent a large amount of time in discussion with the Texans owner. I'd know him from a few other leagues, and when he was brought in, this team was not the easiest to take over just due to the cap space and the players rostered with years and the contract and the huge Pro Bowl extensions he had coming up. So the main thing I encouraged him on is wait, make a plan, see who you want to keep, if you have to trade one or not, how it's gonna work. We'll check it on Mike in a moment, but just make sure he had a plan before he made any moves, and he decided on wanting to keep both Roquan and Allen and build around them. And my response was, it's a good idea. Good luck with getting the cap space, and with the different moves he made, accumulating with this one. Not only did he get enough space, he got a valid pick back, like Mike's pointed out. So I think he's done a great job at his very first moves as a new owner to set his team up so that he doesn't have to be in panic mode anymore. Because he took it over, he had like a month to roll over. It's not a lot of time to learn a league, figure out the intricacies, try to clear cap, deal with your contracts you get from the previous owner. But from, like, if I was him now, I could just sit back and breathe for a little bit, wait for the draft to approach before he does anything else with the team, and kind of figure out what direction he wants to take. Because the way he's got it now, I actually love the setup of this team where you've got enough talent, you could compete if you want. You also have enough pieces you could sell off more if you wanted to continue accumulating picks. So it's going to be a fun one for this owner. I think we'll watch it going forward on which direction they take it. Mike, what happened? We heard all the noise. We were worried for you for a moment.
That was me getting ice from the refrigerator.
That was you getting ice.
Yes.
Dear God.
For my water.
Okay.
It's not water. Anyways, yeah. So agree with that. Next, so Chris, we'll talk about your team. Zach Mon and Ravens second and 23 for J.D. McKissick. I see the upside of McKissick, but I would rather have your side of the deal.
Ravens actually sent this one over. I sat on it for about a day and a half, debating on what I wanted to do. McKissick, I love his role as a pass catcher. Like, he's going to age well doing that. But I also see the benefit of getting both a second and a potential flyer at linebacker in the future who should have a larger role going forward this year. Again, nothing is ever certain, but yeah, I just thought it was weighted slightly in my favor, and I think it fits actually both our teams well. He needed another running back. I needed draft capital because I always spend all my draft capital. Yeah, that was kind of.
Honestly, I think New Orleans is in for a cleansing of sorts this year. That depending on where you look and who you listen to, right now, before they do anything with their contracts, they are $74 million over the cap. So per the point that I think it was Ravens making in chat, one of the beat writers for the Saints has called out that they could convert contracts, base your compensation, and clear up a ton of cap space without really counting anybody. And I think that's still a complete possibility. But that said, there's probably still a couple people who are going to leave. So that opens opportunities. I'm hoping it opens opportunities for Peyton Turner. Zach Bond, I believe, was getting first round noise a couple years ago, but I think got taken in the second or third by the Saints.
He ended up going in the third to them in the real draft. Yeah.
So again, he was getting first round buzz coming up to the draft and went a third. So I look at him as first round caliber prospect that just slipped for whatever reason. Again, it could be the Wisconsin thing or whatever, but I think that's a great grab. And then the future second, especially in your division.
we we had a little Ravens. I had a conversation afterwards. We just said we couldn't believe we pulled off a trade within division based on last year we attempted a couple, but we didn't want to make each other's teams better. So we held off again this offseason. We think it's going to be another bloody year, but
again, I'm always going to be wrong on JD McKissick. I have systematically been wrong on him every step of the way. I either thought he was going to blow up and he didn't in Seattle, or I thought he was going to be an afterthought in some other locations he's gone, and he hasn't been. So as long as Rivera wants to do a running back by committee in Washington, he's going to have a role. But he clearly is showing that he's going to be one of those guys who can put up running back 2, running back 3 level points in this league as long as he's an active player. RJ, anything to add?
No, I'm a little lost right now. Catch me up.
All right, fair enough. We'll keep it moving here.
I'm curious. I feel like your beard grows at least 3 times as fast as mine, because last time we talked, I didn't feel like you had much of a beard going on, and now
it's disgusting. It's a chore to manage. I will tell you that.
Well, I mean, it works out because RJ has the beard that grows way too fast. I have a beard that doesn't grow at all. I could not shave for a week, and all you'd see is kind of stubble here, and then a massive neck beard down here. So, so that's me. And Chris, you just happen to be in between, where you actually have a beard that grows at a respectable rate.
The happy medium.
Being.
Yeah. It's beard season because outside it's currently -21 and the wind chill's hitting about -48 tonight. Is what the wind chill warning is. So the facial hair is needed to help keep me from getting frostbite on my face when I go out and snow blow the driveway after we have a winter storm. So it's partly necessity that I'm growing the beard for the winter.
I don't envy you at all.
It's terrible.
I'm in Florida. It was 40 degrees. I walked outside and I squealed like a child.
Not gonna lie, been working on the shipyard. This is useful outside because it blocks the wind. Again, not enough to not get everything from being chapped, but is what it is.
All right, back to trades.
Pats and Jags. Falcons 232 on the move here with Chase Edmonds, Godchow, and Greedy Williams for the 203. A rug stump, Christian Barmore, and AJ Terrell. Basically, this is going from 232 to 203 for Chase Edmonds trade, as far as I'm concerned. And then some upgrades at D tackle. Not even an upgrade, I would say. Probably a lateral move at D tackle and then an upgrade at corner. This doesn't really, lift my skirt at all, but I would rather have Chase Edmonds in probably 232 than the 203 at this point. As the current owner of the 203 that's not asking for a trade offer, that's just my observation of this trade.
So if you asked me as the Patriots, if I wanted Christian Barmore and AJ Terrell, I would say yes. I would jump for joy. Barmore is amazing. Terrell is a stud cornerback. But you have to have Henry Ruggs on your taxi squad for this year, and then I guess cut him next year. That's kind of a burden. And then to give up like Edmonds, seems like less appealing. Overall, I don't really like what either of them got back, just in general. But like if I have to, I'm taking the Barmore side because I love that guy.
I'm going to be honest. There were so many pieces in this deal, and none of them really excite me that I'm too lazy to figure out which side I like more. Whatever.
All right, so let's keep moving then. Chiefs and Jags. Jags consolidating 2 seconds and a fourth into Janarius Robinson, David Mayo, and the Bills first, which is 131, with Pats and Falcons being the seconds there. The 232, and probably, unless Pats completely falls off, probably a close to, if not a playoff second. Give me the first every time. But again, I can understand wanting to have the multiple shots in the second versus the singular shot in the first. But Robinson, I think, is a interesting asset to have, especially considering some of the turnover that's going to be in Minnesota this year. I mean, Chris, you're the Vikings homer. What do you think about Janarius?
I haven't got to see much of him because he hasn't played, so it doesn't matter too much with me being a homer. With the Vikings turnover, there is a bit of uncertainty still on who's going to lock down kind of that second DE spot across from Hunter when he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other players are probably further up on the totem pole than him, but anytime I'm looking at a team where you've got a stud DE on one side and a potential rotation on the other, if you have an opportunity to collect one of those players, potentially like a prospect that had a little bit of hype around it, like Janarius did for developing them, I'll take that if I can get it. I mean, if your DE hits in the future, even if you don't want to keep them, it's trade value in a league like this with the way we've currently got it set up. So yeah, I'm a fan of getting that player along with the first. Mayo is meh. So yeah, I like the deal.
That is a far different take, and I expected far less words to be used on this podcast for Janarius Robinson. I don't know who the hell that guy is. He's just a burdensome contract that I saw got moved. Oh no!
Your definition of burdensome is getting pretty wide.
It's 4 years in the off season. I don't want 4 years of who.
You don't want 4 years in the off
roster.
season because you currently have so many rookie picks that the contract years are going to be an issue for you. That's not the case for a large chunk of our owners. So
That's fair.
You're a very unique subset, which is fun to be in. But I
click on this guy. I don't even see zeros. I see blank, and I just then I look at how many years he has left, and I just go, no thanks.
So yeah, whatever.
The guy who's rebuilding doesn't want the rookie who didn't play yet. Anyways, so let's move on to the next one. And as some of you may have noticed, because you were in chat for the 3 hours that Colts was, Colts is back with a vengeance. He paid. He has his team unlocked, and immediately upon unlocking his team, makes a trade, which I hate for him. Getting Sion Takitaki and the Titans third for Braxton Berrios and the Ravens fourth. Give me Berrios over everything else in this deal. Berrios was being featured in so many different roles in the Jets backfield. I think it's one of those that it's a copycat league. We're going to hear 5,000 times this offseason. So-and-so is the next Deebo Samuel, or so-and-so is this team's Deebo Samuel. Braxton Berrios is actually the Jets' Deebo Samuel in this case. So getting that for exchanging the third and the fourth and Taki, like every time, yes, sign me up. Sorry, Chris, you had your hand up.
I did. I'll let RJ talk first. I've talked before him each time, but I have opinions that are different than yours on this.
I mean, less passionate opinions, but very similar. I don't like the idea of getting rid of Berrios. I would have been on the side of keeping him or trading for him. I think that's a fantastic get for the Browns. I know he's trying to move him right now, and I hope he makes a great profit because he's certainly worth it, even with a tag.
How much are you going to pay for Berrios with a tag upcoming this next season?
Like $17 million or something.
Right.
Like that.
I do not believe Berrios is going to be worth $17 million.
I'm probably exaggerating that.
Probably, but I also think his usage late season is due to the state of the Jets team. I don't see him being a key cog next year. I think all that hype that we're going to hear about the next Deebo Samuel or the other team's Deebo Samuel and that, I don't actually think Berrios is that. So I've got a very different take on this player, which I'm likely wrong on, but
yeah, my fondness for him comes from the same. I mentioned it previously on the last pod about Quez Watkins. Like it's just he's been with that team. Like Berrios has been with the Jets for this is the second full season, if I'm not mistaken. He knows. You can't really say the offense because it's going to change every year probably. But he knows the He knows the setup. Like he's an entrenched player there, and like he's just going to get work. It's not going to be the most targets on the team, but he's going to get like a higher floor than most other players, and he's going to be probably more consistent. Like if he falls into 115 a year, but scores decent points, puts up very few zeros, a couple of threes here and there, but then a couple 9-point games, couple 10-point games. Like that's what you expect out of a player like that.
So if you RFA Barrios, it's what average of top 30 salaries, top 35.
I don't remember offhand. I gotta look.
Sounds correct.
So it's going to be probably close in the $10 to $11 million range.
Get him for 1 year.
Again, 1 year. 1 year, $11 million. Understood.
Yep.
Wide receiver 29 last year. So wide receiver 29, and look at his offensive stats: 400 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns, and then 400 yards receiving with 2 touchdowns and everything. Put up wide receiver 29 on the year because of his work on special teams. That's the kind of player who, again, could see his role expand as it did in the back end of the season. I don't think that's going to be his role going forward forever, but it's a valuable player that when people start getting cap space this offseason, somebody bids on. So what did I just do? I traded Barrios. I traded a third and Taki to get a fourth and Barrios, who could turn back into a third. So basically, I traded Taki for a fourth, and I think getting the salary off my team and everything on that standpoint is worth it there, even if I end up not matching the bid that is likely coming on Barrios. So I think it's worth the risk, especially considering a 200-point upside, considering that's wide receiver 1 territory this year.
He's not getting anywhere near that. I will die. Yeah, I'll take I had the stance before this conversation. I didn't know this was going to come up. It'll be fun to revisit it in season next year to see how wrong I might be on it. But I agree, for the potential trade favors Browns. I'm not behind all the hype that you have for Barrios, though.
All I'm saying is if I can trade a 3rd-round pick and get a potential wide receiver 1, even if I have to pay him $10 million, I think that's worth it anyways. I understand why both sides did it, especially if it's got to come with a tag, but that's how I feel about the player and his potential. So let me get back to the trade screen here.
Get some
this
small
is going
ones.
to be a fun discussion too. This next one.
So I'm going to let RJ jump into this one. So Demetric Felton for the Raiders 23 third. I don't know how I feel about this. RJ, I know that you've got a stronger opinion, I think, on this one than I do, but I find myself coming down on both sides of this trade. So RJ, I'll let you kick it off.
He's a fantastic best ball asset. I feel like this is far less than what he's worth. Sure, you can argue the fact that 2 other running backs are going to come back healthy on that same roster, but those other 2 running backs weren't considered a wide receiver and a running back when they came out. So when he is 3rd on the depth chart at running back, he will just go out in the slot because they need that. They don't have anybody else that's going to go there. He's a good player. He had great production. If you look at his actual statistics when you pull it up in MFL, you're kind of underwhelmed because a lot of his production came in special teams. So he's already carved out a role for himself, and he's 23, going on 24. He's a little bit older of a rookie. But, for $670K, that's everything you want as like a running back 3 or 4.
But the years, RJ, there's 4 years on this contract.
That's fine. He's already putting up points.
The hypocrisy. Oh my God. What are we doing? The hypocrisy.
That is the player that is worth devoting 4 years to.
I know.
The hypocrisy. Oh my God. No, so again, and it's one of those that looking at it, I think he might actually have more touches receiving the ball than running the ball. 6 rushes for 18 yards, 16 receptions for 163, a touchdown, and 19 targets. a lot of his work coming on special teams. Again, one of those things that I will call my own deficiencies. I'm not great at finding the special teamers, especially the ones who have some depth as best ball asset. Felton for a 23 third of a playoff team, likely, probably worth it. I see Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt ahead of him, going to require probably an injury for him to get substantial time that is in special teams. But again, I recognize that's one of my deficiencies, and I don't necessarily see that part of the ball as well as I should.
Wasn't there another Browns running back ahead of him?
Ernest Johnson.
Yes, that's who I was thinking of.
And I think he's a free agent. I'm not 100% sure about that. Someone would have to go to Spot Tracker over the cap and double check me on that.
Yeah, the biggest appeal for him is there's always a couple of players, one or two every year that comes out in the draft that like they are a wide receiver and a running back, or are considered both. And whatever team drafts them, will announce what position they are drafting them at. But like he was one of them, and just like the versatility of that type of player, like if they're a halfway competent NFL team, they're going to utilize, all of his assets, all of the things that he does well. And if he can go out and play wide receiver well, then he's probably going to do that. And look at Cleveland's wide receivers.
So, all right, moving on to the next one. These next two deals, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on.
No.
I have no idea why you're giving up a 4th-round pick for Chase Winovich. I don't. He put up 19 points this year. I really don't understand that. But again, people understand that side of the ball better than I do. I'll not torch him too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Bears 4th-round pick for Duke Johnson. Okay. Did everyone else just hit their head and forget what he just did in 1 week for Miami and then getting picked up for the squad? 22 runs, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception for 20 yards on a single target. So the guy can play. He got signed to Miami's active roster. I don't know if he's going to stick there, but a 4th-round pick for that kind of upside, sign me up.
You forget that Miami doesn't care about running backs and their production.
You forget that entire front office and coaching staff just turned over,
which will definitely improve the Johnson outlook.
Again, for a 4th-round pick, fine.
Yeah, no, it's fine for a 4th. It's fine for a 4th.
I like the idea of a 4th for Duke Johnson, the person, not Duke Johnson, the Miami running back, because he's probably not going to be there. Like right. Miami shows no loyalty to running backs. Even if you play well for them a handful of games, they'll get rid of you for somebody younger and cheaper.
Right. So again, Miami showcased what he can do if he's given touches this year. He may not come back to Miami, to your point, Chris. So that said, he's shown what he can do. He's going to latch on someplace, and he's going to get a shot this season. For a 4th-round pick and the level that tends to pay off, again, give me Duke Johnson over that 4th every time, especially if it's a playoff 4th.
He hasn't produced for 2 years, really, though, and he's sitting at $7 million. So I see why the owner got rid of him for a 4th. I also like the upside for Goose. Goose has to accumulate.
Everybody, $7.1 million. I retract all positive things I just said.
On to the next trade. Forget about what we said.
I retract everything. I would like to apologize to all the listeners for having me get up on my soapbox for that one. That is not the thing to do. Here's what I'm going to my soapbox for.
But he's only got 2 years on his deal, so it's not.
It's appeal to me.
RJ wants him.
So the Giants. They're what, the 15th pick? So this is what, the 315? For KJ Hamler and Traquan Smith. What are we doing here?
It's the 14th pick, but yeah.
Okay. I was guessing. So hooray for only being off by 1 pick. So 314 for Traquan Smith and KJ Hamler. Hamler, who is a best ball asset because he gets loose deep and is going to put up, 4 or 5, 15-point games for you on one side. And then Traquan Smith, who is always been looked at as that other side to Michael Thomas. Like for 314, like what are we doing? Come on, guys, you can get better for that.
Yeah, Panthers dropped the ball on that one.
Again, that's my opinion. But again, it's one of those where, hey, I didn't make an offer for those players, so I can't necessarily sit here and say, I would have given you so much more if I didn't actually get in the game. So good on Giants for capitalizing on those two pieces and getting what I think is a great deal for him. But those two players I look at as great third or fourth receivers or fourth or fifth receivers in a wide receiver core. Getting two of those for a third round pick, a mid third round pick, is a great swipe by Giants.
I think Traquan by himself is worth more than that. I'm not very high on Hamler at all. Like if this had been a third for Hamler, I would have said give me the third side of it.
Yeah.
But with both of them there, like I said, Traquan I think is worth more just by himself. He's got a good contract, not too many years, not too high on the salary. Nobody can complain about that. So yeah, Giants will have a fun little squad of receivers.
Yep, Mike, I think you hit it right on the head. Like none of us offered for it. You know, it's really easy for us to say we would have paid more. You know, in theory we might have, but
Yep.
you know, if it was something that we really wanted, then we should have went out and we should have made some half-hearted offer or, you know, tried to get some type of discussion going. So,
again, and that's shame on us for that one. But I think, you know, we look at that and we would prefer the players to the pick. But moving on, he made it all back in the next trade, getting the 432 and the 529 for Nelson Aguilar, who, again, I like this view. I like the contract.
Yes.
I like his position. He's a New England. He's a perfect New England wide receiver. He's going to have weeks where he gets 7 targets and 50 yards. He's going to have weeks where he gets 6 targets and 3 touchdowns. Like that's just going to be how he's used in New England, and those kind of guys are very valuable in a best ball format. So for a 4th and a 5th, especially very late ones, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. He has a very inflated cap cost next year, like real life. So he hopefully will restructure that, or they'll fix it in some way, shape, or form. But he is on the contract. He is on contract for next year.
Yeah, good deal for you. Exactly the kind of guy you want on your rebuild.
All right. So the next two we've got Bengals giving Eric Wilson for a Washington 5th, and then just giving Alex Okafor straight up to the Rams in what is probably a cap dump. Chris, anything you want to say about those?
Yeah, I just posted that I attempted to trade both of these players for different 4th or 5ths individually to a handful of teams I thought might be interested that were weak in that position. I had no plans of keeping them into next year, so I used the trade channel in Discord. If you haven't used that, it's great. You can put a message in there. People actually read it, and immediately got offers for these guys. Even though I said it was free, Panthers gave me a 5th, so he jumped to the top of the line, which bumped your deal out, Eagles, where you tried to grab them both, and then you declined to grab Okafor individually, but Rams was willing to take me up on that. So
yep.
Yeah,
I wanted Wilson as a payoff to take that off Okafor deal. So I couldn't just take Okafor myself. To somebody like Rams who may actually use him, that's perfectly fine.
Yep.
I got a little too crazy with my cutting players and stuff like that. So I just have to be a little bit more mindful. I know, saying that with like a 20-something million in cap space is kind of ridiculous, but I just, I didn't want the extra 5 million without a desirable piece like Wilson. And I think that Wilson trade was actually fantastic for both of you.
Yeah, when I originally grabbed Wilson, was when he was with the Vikings. I'm not going to spend much more time on him. He's not an impact player at this point. But when he was with the Vikings, he fit their scheme well, and then he benefited from Anthony Barr being injured, which resulted in the Vikings not being able to keep him in real life, which actually hurt, I believe, his outlook because then he moved to different schemes and teams that weren't able to utilize him. Potentially could still be useful, just not a contracted player I wanted any longer on my team.
Yeah, completely agree. Very diminished, I guess you could say, like in real life, but still somebody that's going to provide, more than what you'd expect a fifth round pick
Yep.
type of production.
I mean, far better than I don't know. You can get with a 314. Am I right, Giants?
He's
Hello.
here. Welcome.
So apparently, this is what it takes. I say we see nice things about your team. We gush about a trade you make, and then you jump on the pod. So I don't know, were your ears burning, or do you just listen in and say, "Hey, I need to weigh on this this travesty of a trade that I just made"?
No, yeah, I thought I might come up a couple times, so I figured I should finally join one of these casts.
Welcome.
But I haven't caught much of the conversation to date, so I just saw it was still up, and so I figured I'd hop in.
We recently just talked about you acquiring Hamler and Traquan for that third, and we all unanimously agreed it was a great deal for you, especially the Traquan piece of it. So
Yeah, I was super stoked to get some depth at wide receiver. I've been chasing receivers, I feel like, for the last several months, so I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, there seems to be I don't want to say a discrepancy in value, just like this weird scenario where like a lot of the wide receivers end up being worth like a second or a first or a second, and like it's really hard to find non-terrible ones for like that third round value, and then every bottom of the barrel type of receiver just falls into that fourth and fifth.
Yep.
And like picking up two of those probably should be like a lower end second, mid, early third for 1/3. Fantastic deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
like
even like Quez Watkins earlier, I can't remember the exact offer at this point, but yeah, just getting like three of those guys that are second, maybe second, but third or fourth stringers who, are going to pop occasionally for best ball sounded great.
Yeah, you got Quez too.
Mm-hmm.
That was
unbelievable.
He had to ship off. Why am I forgetting his name? The guy like the defensive end on the Jets now that tore his Achilles.
Carl Lawson, yeah, it was
Yes.
part of the
Lawson
Lawson
for Cam Jordan,
and that was it. And I got Cam Jordan back. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, the receiver group, if we just look at it quickly, you're anchored by AJ Brown, which is great, and then the four that kind of back him up are Quez Watkins, Kadarius Toney, Traquan Smith, and Hamler. That's not a bad best ball lineup for wide receiver. They're all young. They all have the potential to gain value depending on how they play. So it's not a bad lineup.
I mean, it's like one wide receiver one and a whole bunch of wide receiver threes. That's kind of how you want to do best ball. Like one of them is going to step into a wide receiver 2 role almost every week because they are players with roles in their offense. So I like it.
Yep.
My only question is, are you sure you're not Goose?
That is a Goose lineup, at least at wide receiver. You got to move AJ Brown, then it'll be Goose lineup.
No, I mean, so AJ Brown's just Robert Woods.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he's got a bunch of wide receiver 3s. So again, like I said, are you sure you're not Goose? You don't have to answer because I don't want to catch a lie.
No, he's not.
Yeah,
he's
I
not
played the
Goose.
fifth.
Yep, go ahead.
I was just saying, I played the fifth there. No, I think if you could see the trade back and forth that he and I have had the last since he joined, I mean, there must have been 50 offers between the two of us. It was ridiculous.
I think he's got that with every owner right now.
Yeah,
so
yeah, yep.
I can only imagine if Chris logged in as Goose to see how many offers have gone out. If I put the over under at 300 offers that have gone out from Goose, I don't know which side of that I'd take.
No.
Anyways, all right. So 7 trades to go here. A lot of these are we're gonna talk about Giants at least one more time, but a lot of this is going to be conversation about my team. So I'll read the trades and let you guys, dissect and beat the crap out of me for them.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm gonna have to leave here in a minute though. But
well,
I'll stick around.
Your developers don't need to talk to you.
I have to do work. Like if I don't work, then I don't get paid. If I don't get paid, then I don't do fantasy football for fun, which means I'm not here anymore. And then you're going to end up with Goose as commissioner again.
Anyways, so breaking up Austin Eckler for Rex Burkhead, Devin Singletary, Vegas second, Chargers second, Tampa's third, and the Giants 23 third. Again, been offering Eckler over the league and finally made a deal with him. I think as my
Enough
stud
for
breakups
me.
go, this is probably on the cheaper side of things.
Yeah, I can't say I'm like in love with the deal, but I do think you got adequate value. Just I don't know, it got broken down, a lot.
Yeah. I mean, take off Burkhead from there. At least I would when I'm trying to look at the value. Singletary, 2 seconds, 2/3 for Eckler. I feel like those are all those pieces add up to what Eckler would be worth. But if I take the discount for having the multiple pieces on that side, I think I'd rather have the Eckler piece of it.
Mhm.
Mainly,
I'm just fully sold on Singletary, honestly, at this point.
I will get back to that. I'll talk to you
Yeah,
about that in a moment. Okay.
Whoa, that was my red flag.
Just because a couple things by Eckler. One, he's got a 6-year contract, so RJ hates it, but it's under $1 million. So 825,000. So you're just never gonna have to worry about a salary increase again. Like if you look at his contract info, look at the amount of extensions he's had on that sucker to get it to where it's at. But with the style of running back he will age well, and he'll turn into a great pass catching back when he can no longer shoulder the actual rushing attempts that he's going to have in this last year and hopefully in the next couple of years. So I'd love this type of running back in a league like this, just to get the steady PPR reception points. But I'm way more curious on your stance on Singletary than anything else that's been said in the last 50 minutes. So can we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah.
I will help defend that stance.
That's okay.
So I think coming into the season, the big question was what's going to be the breakdown between Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. By mid-season, Zach Moss was a healthy scratch, and Singletary, if you look at how he finished the season, was lead running back numbers. Give me the lead running back numbers with Josh Allen every day of the week going forward here, because I don't think Matt Breida is going to be a big challenger to him. If Zach Moss is getting healthy scratch, I'm not worried about that. So the question is, which is going to be Moss or Singletary? It's Singletary's backfield, and if I can have the RB1 in Buffalo's offense, yeah, that's perfectly fine. So again, maybe I'm being short-sighted in this. Again, there's plenty of opportunity for off season to come in and shake up everything. But I think Singletary is the guy to own there, and I think he's got 2 more years there under current contract. I love the player, I love the situation, and frankly, if I'm wrong, who's not going to give me a first for Devin Singletary? So I think the ability to exit for a player of that caliber is there too.
Well said.
I think that's a fair analysis of Singletary versus Moss. I see the drafting of Moss as an indication of their unhappiness long term with Singletary, and they might address that position again.
They weren't necessarily happy with Singletary's production after his rookie year, but they still have him under contract next year. He's an unrestricted after that.
Yeah. So
I think they saw enough this year to where they'll probably give him another year of work and then go from there.
So his last 3 games.
Yeah, if you take out the last 3 games, his season looks remarkably different than week 15, 16, 17 that we've got stats for. And just looking at the player page here, I understand the allure of the RB1 for the Bills. Man, this is another one where I run away from the hype or the recency bias of what he's looked like. I don't feel like his security as the main ball carrier is quite as secure as it might appear. I'd be with Giants and expecting them to do something to help address the running back position as well. So he's not built to be a bell cow. he's never going to get 80% of the touches on there. And then the fact that you've got Josh Allen is both that blessing and a curse in that you're going to lose a lot of goal line looks to him. And part of this is just making content for the pod, but the other part is I'm a player I'm fading this offseason and selling if I can for either picks or other players that I value around that same area. Yeah,
that's fair. All right, moving on to the next one here. Looking at the one that kind of caught some folks off guard here, but is definitely debatable in terms of how the value broke out. Chiefs giving my first this year, which is 129, Ravens third, Steelers fourth, and Texans fourth next year for Kenneth Gainwell, and the Chargers third, which I think is in the mid-20s. So basically giving a first plus for Kenneth Gainwell. Again, I think if you assume he's going to take the role, I think it's a perfect goose running back. That's all I can say about it. For a late first, the value is there. If Sanders departs or is not there next year, then congratulations, more power to you. But from what he did this year, I think it's a reasonable shot to take. RJ, what were your thoughts on this one? I know this is when you and I both reacted to strongly.
It's a good trade.
What?
Thank you, RJ.
What content? I will add to this by saying I need to run. RJ is going to have to give a bit more than that. Thank you for letting me be on here, guys.
All right. Thanks, Chris. And again, everyone remember to get your lineup straightened out. Okay, Giants, you got to say this here because RJ's giving me nothing.
Yeah, I guess I was surprised at all the excess picks on the third and fourth rounds that kind of got added on. But with the contract and I think the opportunity in the Philly backfield, I think the value's there. Knowing he shipped off Miles Sanders, I thought he had the stack when it first went when it was first accepted, because I think he shipped out Sanders earlier a couple weeks ago. So I kind of liked it from the stack standpoint, but I think it's still a good fine value, and he's got enough picks to fill out his roster however he wants.
Well, again, that's the thing too. It's 129. You're not. So yes, Gibson went around the 129. Players like this do slip to this area, but it's a hit or miss at that point, especially from the offensive side of the ball. If I'm giving that and late thirds and fourths and stuff like that to make sure I've got a player who has a defined role in an offense that makes sense and has shown me value already, give me the player, especially since I've got the third back. So I'm basically giving the 129 and fourths to get a player that I might not get at 129 in this year's draft. So I came down to the Gainwell side of it. But that being said, I think there are a lot of people going after Gainwell, and then it was a surprise that there weren't more back and forth conversations that the deal was taken. But I can't fault the Rams on what he got in the deal. That said, I think he might have been able to hang on for more. But I won't fault someone for taking what they feel is a good deal.
Yeah, it's a good return for Gainwell. Gainwell's a fantastic running back. Whether Miles Sanders is there or not, they fit it. They play a different role in that offense. So his production's going to be there. He's just a good all-around player. You're probably going to find somebody like that around 129, just rather than pick it, hoping that you pick that player. You already have that player by trading for Gainwell. So fantastic deal.
And the contract is obviously better, right? Because Gainwell was somewhere in the second round in last year's draft. I think you could argue that an early second might even be more valuable than a late first, just based on what you can do with the contract there.
Yes, although some of the rule changes have kind of diminished how value. I wouldn't say diminished, but has reduced the extra value of a second round pick, just because you can't extend them until their third year.
Fair.
Right. And to that point, I'm just double checking what pick he was in last year's draft, because I thought he was
210.
Yeah, he was picked before Chuba, because I remember they were on my short list. I think I got Chuba a couple picks later.
I was trying desperately to get him into the draft at that point and could not. So I remember that. I remember texting from. Never mind. Anyways, moving on to the last pick before we dive into the black hole that is me tearing apart my team. Patriots giving the Buccaneers first this year for Travis Gibson, the salary dump of Jalen Mills and Jonathan Abram. Again, the first for Gibson and Abram. I don't know if I would do that, but I can't fault him for that. But that being said, Gibson on that contract at 24 years old isn't a bad thing. So I think it's a good value depth play, but for a first, I think the price might be a little high.
Yeah, a little expensive for defense, but not awful. You have two players with upside, and like Jalen Mills isn't awful. Like I'm not a huge fan of that contract. I don't think anybody is.
I'm sorry.
But, you know, yeah, no, he's a cornerback. Get rid of him at that price.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to talking about Maine because that's why everyone tunes into the podcast anyway. Nick Bosa moving off my team to unite the Bosas in baby blue, Carolina blue for the 108. I think people are going to come down on either side of this. We just talked about moving up first for defense, but DE1 for 108. What do you think, RJ? Did I get completely ripped off?
Well, this is a little bit different level of defense and, first round picks. I think you got the better end of it, just because worst case scenario at like 108, I don't know, you could probably get another defensive end that's slightly younger. Is it going to be Nick Bosa? Probably not, but you at least get the gamble, and you get a little bit of youth and a little bit cheaper out of it. I don't
That's
know.
assuming the 108 isn't broken down further to a future deal too.
What are you talking about? I don't think deals like that.
Yeah.
But overall, I think both of you walk away happy with this. Panthers probably thrilled to have both Bosas, very productive players at defensive end, and I think you're probably happy with the 108 because you can do various things with it.
Yep. All right, Giants. Let's talk about our trade. This was probably a couple weeks in the making, and I got a very upset Goose text after this. But moving George Kittle and your third next year back to you for Austin Hooper, your first this year, and Rams first this year. You get to dump the Hooper contract on me and get the best tight end contract in the league for a top 3 tight end. I get to continue adding first round picks and figuring out what the hell I'm going to do with a $12 million Austin Hooper. Especially at the renegotiation. So wait, seriously, he was $24 million before you renegotiated him?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
He was franchise tagged by two previous owners of Seattle ago.
That's right. I remember trying to get him before he expired so I could trade extend him, being told the pound sand, and then him getting this now rings a bell, and it's a very annoying bell. It's a high pitched and ear-shattering bell, but it's a bell nonetheless.
Yep.
All right, so continue. Your offense is looking really freaking strong.
Yeah, I'd like some more depth, and this all assumes Deshaun Watson is playing in the 2022 season. So yeah, I think I like that I've improved. I feel like I've improved a lot in the last calendar year. But yeah, it was basically like I traded Mark Andrews earlier in the season for a first, a third, I think, and McKitty, who's hopefully he'll be something one day, but not going to really be a big contributor. And then I think I got Hooper for a late third, just to fill out the tight end position. And the renegotiation was always on the table. I wanted to move him beforehand, so I didn't have to renegotiate him, but there was no bites. But Kittle's contract, I've had my eye on that for years, honestly. I sent Matt a number of offers over the years trying to get him. And when you actually sent the first offer, I was like, oh, this is very interesting. That first offer was pretty different, I think, than where we finally ended up, which I was
Pretty
really
close.
trying
We
not
danced
to give
around for a
away
while.
114 if all possible, but it just had to be included. So
No, again, I think, look, $1 million for that player when the offense is on all cylinders, and especially once Lance takes over, like, good for you. I needed to spread out some talent on my defense and some of the other areas as well, so I needed to break them down. But enjoy enjoy running wild on the NFC East next year, because apparently nobody wants to win it.
I've been pretty happy that Washington hasn't made any effort. Maybe there's some effort, but not any moves to kind of move the needle there. But yeah, I don't know. RJ, what do you think? I'm curious from the division rival standpoint.
So I feel like you gave up a little bit much for Kittle, but you're going to have to for that contract, for that potential production. Some people, not necessarily myself or anybody on this podcast, but some people may, if they were engaged in talks, may want to say he might be not over the hill, but past his like career years. But I still think he is a top 3 product at tight end, and at that contract, you are not going to get him for cheap.
Yeah.
He's also one of the tight ends that shows up in those later season games.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's great for a playoff push. I wish you had like another second and another third just to like flesh out depth.
Yeah.
Like if you could go find another like Panthers-esque trade for like a second and get yourself like a dart throw running back, and like a Rex Burkhead, somebody who's the only running back on their roster under contract, and like another wide receiver, like that would have been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But like not everything's perfect, and you are in a prime position to just I don't know if it's steal the East trophy away from Washington, but certainly challenge him.
Yeah.
At least have him concerned, and especially since like I think some of his players are aging, and I guess if you want to compare his Brady to your Watson,
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, same
you
odds
have
on our
the-
quarterbacks playing next year.
I guess I'd give you the slight edge, actually.
Yeah.
So like in that sense, I guess like no crowning anybody in the division yet, but you've certainly like staked your claim for like that division, at least for the upcoming year.
Yeah, it'll be one of those, like, it'll come down to our matchups, the Washington Giants matchups.
The nice thing is you don't have random junk on the back end of your roster. So you don't have like 2 or 3 random, 5th round rookie wide receivers that put up 0 points and they have 3 years left on their contract, and you have to like find a way to get rid of them while also like bringing in quality.
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess you could say that in tight end, like not really with McKitty or Gray, but like in theory, that's the type of player that I'm referring to.
Don't look at my taxi.
Yeah, like okay, so like hide those until the end of forever. But like other than that, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm just worried. It's like top heavy, right? So it's really going to come down to health. I had pretty good success like filling out depth in free agency last year, so I'm hopeful for more of the same. And then I'll flip him to Matt for a first, that Kenny Young deal.
Well, I mean, so like I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but like the last time you were in the playoffs, like this looks like a very similar type of team minus Za'Darius.
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess you could say Chase Young is playing that like role of that like defensive game breaker like Za'Darius was. But like, you could argue, oh, it's slightly thin, but like if you make it to the playoffs and like everybody's healthy and playing well, then you could just run away with it like you did when you had Lamar Jackson, 3
Yeah.
years ago?
Not even that long ago. I think
There we go.
my daughter was just born when I traded him, so it was in May when I traded Lamar. I was pretty sleep deprived. That was a deal I regret and have been trying to claw back from since.
Well,
adding
you
to Lamar to trade him for Tua.
Yeah.
You know
Okay, in
the
my
f-
defense, the original deal had Cooper Cup in it. And yeah, I don't know. Somewhere along the lines, my lack of sleep got the better of me.
Been there, done that, had that T-shirt, and all 4 May birthdays, especially for little ones. So, understand completely. All right. Last deal involving me, which is great because I don't like to talk about myself in this content. Darius Leonard, who I just got as part of my Jonathan Taylor breakup for Khalil Mack, the Jalen Mills contract dump for about $10 million, and the 203 for Darius Leonard. I believe in Khalil Mack. I believe that with a new GM and a new coach, anything is possible. And one of those things that could be possible is a shift back from the 3-4 to the 4-3. And I would not mind having Khalil Mack move back to the end.
Yeah, I don't know. We talked about this a little bit before the podcast. I'm not thrilled about getting rid of Darius Leonard, but for the foreseeable future, Mack is still an acceptable player, exceptional player, not acceptable. And you get a second round pick, so you go out and you find another defensive player that can be a producer right away. Or since it is such an early second, you could probably pick up one of those Gainwell-esque offensive pieces that falls into the early second round.
Pat Fryermuth, yeah.
And again, so Mack had 6 sacks in 7 games last year before he got hurt. So I'm okay giving that a few more years, whether it be D end or linebacker with a 203. Again, Leonard is, if not the most valuable linebacker piece in the league right now, close to. But again, $10 million contract, so tough to hold. But I think
he might not even be the best linebacker on his team. Bobby Okereke, I see you. I'm kidding.
Right. So again, one last time, the 232 moves yet again. Ends the podcast with the Titans, but at the rate that it moved around since the last podcast, I think it was on 5 or 6 different teams in that time frame. So who knows what it'll do in the next week. Moving Ebron and 232 for the Bengals second, which I think is like an early 20s. So moving up like 11 spots for Eric Ebron, who $8.6 million in Pittsburgh, where Fryermuth kind of took over the spot there. So not quite sure about this one.
Yeah, hats off to Goose for this trade. He won that one.
Like, it looks like a salary dump and moving up 11 spots.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't view Ebron as an asset.
Nope.
That said, again, Luigi's been in a number of these leagues before. He brought the team without McCaffrey, even though he was on the team, to a win from making the playoffs. So can't completely discount the approach as an owner. But that being said, I'd rather have the pick without the $8.6 million cap hit, but just me. All right. So remember the podcast started and I said we weren't going to talk about every trade that happened, and then we proceeded to talk about every trade that happened.
Yep.
I'm not
We
very
just
good at
did
this.
It's all right.
It's,
We saved the shopping and talking about other teams until next week.
Yeah. So we can think about this a little bit more and do a little bit more prep work. So we'll pick. Everyone will pick a couple of teams. We'll go through players we think they should trade, players we think they should build around. We did that for a couple of the new owners, but I think we'll start doing that, kind of going division by division here over the offseason because we need content and we need to talk. And because what happens after we talk on these podcasts, we trade. So let's get to that part of the conversation. So, RJ, any closing remarks?
I just see a whole bunch of active people, so I hope some people will come join us and do some
brother.
trade talks.
And Giants. So good to have you on. Thanks for joining, even though it was a little bit late, but it's good to have you on here. And hopefully you hang around and we make some magic happen.
Yeah, I'll stick around. Happy to join. Thanks for doing these, guys. And you know, I always listen after the fact, but it's fun, kind of, you know, additional content to the fun of the trade side of the league. So appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for those watching at home, the 3 dedicated viewers we have right now, thanks for your viewership. For those who are going to view later, thank you very much, except for you, Colts. Just kidding. Love you, buddy. Safe travels, safe everything, and, be well out there.